Hello, my name is Merynda Adams, and I'd like to introduce you to the book Fun from the First. It's a great beginner book for harpists of all ages who have some basic knowledge of note reading. These videos are dedicated to Sam Milligan, a wonderful man and lover of all things related to the harp. The intention of the book is to introduce you to hand position and relaxation. It's not so much for discussing the information that's already in the book. You can read about that. There's harp tuning, changing strings, and also some music theory as well as sitting at the harp. We're going to discuss relaxation and hand position. If you can get those from the first, it will really enhance your playing. Perhaps you've already been playing the harp for a while. If that's the case, this might be just a review of some of the basics, or you can incorporate some of these techniques into your playing right now. The book looks like this. There's also a newer version with a white cover, and it's available as a PDF for immediate download on the internet. So let's get started. So we're going to start on page 5 with the exercise. We're starting with 2 fingers placed on in the right hand, and these brackets that you see are going to tell you how many fingers to put on at once. So we have 2 and 1 on C and D. Your thumb is high, your second finger is low, and all the other fingers are just dangling. There's no tension until you actually play the string. You squeeze the second finger and then play your thumb, replacing 2 and 1 together. The fingers are coming all the way into the palm. So even the 3rd, 4th, and 5th fingers that aren't being used are moving with the second finger. So there's a gentle motion into your palm and then falling back to the strings. With the left hand is a similar idea. The left hand, I don't rest on the board. The right hand I do use as a guide, and I rest very, very gently using it as a guide. Left hand, the next exercise on page 5. Placing both fingers on. Fingers coming into the palm. On the bottom of page 5 is the piece Antrim Fair. The right hand begins. Second finger pointing low, thumb up high, but again, no tension. Just enough to hold your hand on the harp. You might have noticed at the end of that first line that when I played 1, 2, and then the second finger, my arm shifted down the smallest amount. If I stay up here, I would have to reach out and play that second finger, but instead, the palm comes forward to meet that finger that's coming into the palm. I'm going to continue. So now we're doing the left hand of Antrim Fair, the last line on page 5. Fingers coming into the palm, falling back to the strings. Merrily We Roll Along is found on page 6. 2 fingers are placed on. Fingers coming into the palm. But no tension might have noticed when I play a single second finger that I'm actually squeezing the string a tiny bit before I play it. So there are actually two motions. You're squeezing, and then you're bringing it into the palm. If you think about the harp as originating from a bow and arrow, that you're pulling to release it, right? To let the vibrations happen. Squeezing, and then the hand comes very gently back into the palm. Like in the third measure of Merrily We Roll Along. Continuing on page 6, Do Do l'enfant do is with the left hand. At the bottom of the page, we have the march. We're using two hands at once. Placing both of these fingers on, 2 and 1. Again, fingers very loose that aren't being used. You might have noticed again at the end of the march, when I have the single second fingers, moving forward very slightly. So we're not here and then stretching out the finger like that. We're coming forward. It's really important that the second finger comes and meets the palm right there. And when the hand is closed, it's like this. It's not tucked under like that. This is very, very gentle closing. The exercises on page 7 are 3 fingers. So 3 fingers are going on at once. You can tell that the thumb is really high and these other fingers are much lower. There's a big gap between the thumb and the second finger. Fingers that are not playing are relaxed, as are the 2 fingers that are on the strings below the thumb. Let's try putting on all the fingers under the bracket at once and playing them as a block. So C, D, E, then F, E, D. This is just an exercise, not what's written. Feel the weight of all the fingers centered around. So you want to feel as though you have opposing strings pulling against each other when you actually squeeze. Squeezing. Moving up and down a little bit. Slightest bit. And then moving slightly down. You can do the same thing, practicing it with the left hand. But let's play it now as written. So all 3 fingers on. As you play the 3rd finger, 4th and 5th, just move as though maybe you're in water. You might have noticed that when the fingers come in, they don't stay in and remain locked in there like that. They touch the palm, they articulate in, and then they're relaxed. When you could go forward towards the bottom of the harp, move the tiniest bit forward so that the weight of your hand is centered over the strings that are playing. Clarity, and you'll be able to play many different dynamics. The left hand does the same thing. sometimes the left hand feels a bit more free because it's not connected to the harp at all. So you're able to just move forward when you descend. The same motion of into your palm, but not tightly into the palm. Anything you can do. On page 7, we continue. 3 fingers, both hands are going to go on to begin. You might have seen me placing a hand when the other one was playing. So if you have a moment, you can look ahead. Once you place those fingers on, you know what those strings are, and you can look ahead to the next measure. The bottom of the page, Westminster Bells. As we descend, we move the slightest bit forward. We're on page 8 with Little Johnnie 3-note. 3 fingers on in both hands. Dublin Bells. This piece is in 3/4. You might want to have more of a downbeat on the first beat. The last 2 measures are bracketed like this. 2 fingers and then 2 fingers again. Your teacher might want you to connect them like this. And to pivot between those 2 notes. It's just a gentle wrist motion, like you're opening a door. On page 8, let me teach you Frère Jaques. There's the same idea of placing on 3 fingers all at once. These can be connected as well. I'm going to play it exactly as written and then play it another time with some optional connections. Now you don't have to play it that fast to begin with, and there are a lot of jumps in there. So you want to have time to get your hand set in the right position. But if you want to do some connections, the very opening, you could connect that thumb to the second finger. So I'm going to do it one more time at a slower tempo with some connections in the first line. Sometimes I'm moving my left hand down here out of the way. That's more so that you can really just see my right hand in the camera. You don't necessarily have to move it back and forth like that all the time. On the next page, we have the F sharp introduced. I'm playing a pedal harp, and with a pedal harp, I would make that change with a pedal. I would push down the F pedal, and it would sharpen the disc. If you have a lever harp, you're going to go to your F string, and you're going to push up the lever, and that's going to make the F sharp. You can make all the F sharps if you like, or just the one that you're going to need, which is that F right above middle C. This is another piece that can be played in a connected way or just separating it. So the first time I'll play it with just the brackets for each measure, and then the second time I'll play it with a little bit of connection and maybe a little bit faster. So that was pretty advanced with some of those connections. It might be easier to play it the way I did it the first time, just to get the positions. But eventually you are going to connect things more. And the brackets are there to show you the up groups and the down groups. So this is a down group, and then this is an up group. And you put all the fingers on the up group and the down group. You might have noticed at the end of the phrase, I took my hand off, then I reset. And your teacher can help you with figuring out where to put the brackets and where to connect. Round dance on page 10. Both hands are playing together. We have to set up 1, 2, 3 in the right hand, making sure the thumb is up. The other fingers are pointing down but relaxed. The second finger is placed in the left hand. At first, I'll play it with no extra connections, just the brackets that are written in the music. This piece is in 3/4 as well, and we want it to sound dance-like. So we would like to make a stronger beat on the downbeat, less on 2 and 3. If we connect some of the phrases, 1, 2, 3, and then replace the thumb right away. So it's the group of down notes, and then the up notes are placed on. And then we can connect the phrases a little bit more and make it sound more dance-like. Here's round dance again, a little faster with connections. So we made connections of 2 measures and then maybe a 4 measure phrase, and that helps it to sound more like a piece. We don't want to have it sound like all the notes with exactly the same. So phrase it, sing it, make it us feel like we want to dance. Lazy Mary at the bottom of page 10. If you were playing round dance before that, you're going to have to get rid of your F sharps, either by putting down a lever or adjusting your pedal. There's a long bracket here, and 3 notes are being repeated, the 3rd fingers, and that gives us a good opportunity to practice that coming into the palm repeatedly, but not tensely, not like that. Sweeping in like this, sweeping into the palm. You might notice that on the 2nd line, the brackets are not put in there. So you have to remember what the fingering was and place on all 3 of those fingers again. On the top of page 11, there's an exercise for thirds. Placing 2 and 1 on together, you're going to squeeze the strings and then bring the fingers into the palm gently. You can feel the opposition of the 2 fingers when you squeeze, and if you can feel like you're not back too far or up too far either. So right centered between the 2 strings. As you ascend, the arm is gently moving up the harp, and then again it's sliding back down. The left hand does a similar pattern. The fingers move in and out. The back of the hand is very relaxed. So your arm is actually supporting the hand, which supports the fingers, but there's no tension. 11, 12, 13 can be found on the bottom of page 11. You might have noticed on the bottom line, I was all the way down here in the ledger lines, and when I jumped up here, I didn't do that. My arm moved up so that the hand position remained the same. There are groups of 4-measure phrases, and it all shouldn't sound exactly the same. We don't want it to sound like this. We don't want every third to sound exactly alike. So think of the melody in the right hand thumb, and then longer phrases. On the second line, there's this really pretty part. It's nice if you make that second third here a little softer. Moving on to the next page, we have the waltz. We're going to make the F sharp again, either with our pedal on the pedal harp or flipping up the lever on the lever harp. So it's a waltz. When you get comfortable with that moving of the fingers in and out gently, you can play it a little bit more quickly, but don't stop articulating your fingers. Still bring them in and keep the relaxation. An exercise with 6 can be found on the bottom of page 12. With a 6th, you're going to use the fingers 3 and 1. The other fingers are going to hang down. We don't want to have this sense. We don't want to know what you've just played just from the shape of your hand. It should just be relaxed and on the strings until you squeeze them. And again, the hand closes. I could have played a third, a fifth, or a big chord, and my hand still is the same shape afterwards. So we're ascending. The hand shape stays the same. Try to balance the fingers so you feel like the weight of your hand is in between the two strings, not too far back, not too far forward. Sometimes you might hit other strings, that's okay, you're just getting used to it. So squeezing into the palm. The left hand is the same. Fingers 2, 4, and 5 are hanging down. Squeeze into your palm, drop back. Squeeze into the palm, drop back. And your whole hand is going to move forward. Or backwards, depending on where the third is. If you're going to jump down here, you move your hand forward. But the same thing happens even when you move gently down the strings, your hand follows the strings. Goose Girl, page 13. A lot of parallel 6th in the right hand. Again, we don't want to have that tight position, closing each time, relaxed. time doing it slowly before you get a faster tempo. You always want to remain relaxed in between them. There are 2 Christmas carols in the book, Good King Wenceslaus and Silent Night. Making sure that we have our F sharp made either with pedal or lever. This is a piece you can play for many years. Maybe the next year you play it, you'll play it a little bit faster. On the next page, we find Silent Night, combining the thirds and the sixths and this dotted rhythm. This spot on the third line is very easy to lock a hand position like that. So really close every time. I'm sure you'll enjoy playing Silent Night. There are 2 tunes in the book, Tantum Ergo and Concordia Laetitia, that are hymns or chants. There is a fermata in the Tantum Ergo. So at the end of the second measure, you're just going to pause a little bit. And if you can imagine that maybe in a monastery people were walking around and chanting this. medieval hymn, Concordia Laetitia. Jasmine Flower is at the bottom of page 15. You might see that there are dynamics written here, the forte and mezzo forte and piano. So try to vary how loudly or softly you're going to be playing. The left hand is playing a fifth, the interval of a fifth instead of a sixth. There are a few places where you can connect if you like, at the end of measure 2. You can, rather than 2, 1, and then a single second finger, 2, 1, 2. That happens at the end of measure 4 as well, and at the very last measure. But it is written like this and separate. But you can talk up to your teacher about how you'd like to do that. We're on page 16, Drink to Me Only with Thine Eyes. This piece is A, B, A. So once you've learned the first line and the third line, you've pretty much learned the whole piece because the sections repeat. You'll need both an F sharp and a C sharp, either making them with your pedals, or you're going to flip up the levers for all the Fs and the Cs. It's combining thirds, some fifths, and some connected notes under the bracket. In the fifth measure, you'll see a D to a G, and that's using a third finger and a thumb. Some people also play it with a second finger. I'm going to play it, though, with the third finger, what's exactly written in the book. The words of that piece are very beautiful. You might want to look them up as well. The next piece, Dutch Mariner's Hymn, is on page 17. Combining fifths and sixths in the left hand, also thirds. There's a fermata, and there's a lot of two-handed playing. The fourth in measure 2 is with 1 and 3, and some people will play it with a 2 and a 1. So see how your teacher would like you to play that as well. So now we're at the bottom of page 17, and we're looking at groups of 4 fingers, and using the 4th finger as well. So all the fingers are on the strings. The thumb is nice and high. 2, 3, 4 are low. They're just touching the strings, not squeezing it at the moment. When we play the 4th finger, it sweeps directly into the palm. The 3rd finger follows. 2nd, and then the thumb comes off. You're going to replace that same set. Kind of fall back to the strings, replacing everything that's under that bracket. And the fingers are loose after they play. They come into the palm and then they relax. When you descend, the same thing. You can come slightly forward so that the palm meets the finger when it comes off the string. And then you'll have a nice even sound from each finger. And the same thing happens in the left hand. They're all placed on together, thumb nice and high, 2, 3, 4 low. Pinky just moving along with the 4th finger. Sweeping into the palm, no tension in the back of the hand. Replace them all. And then we descend. All on at the same time, moving forward a tiny bit as you descend. Kol Slaven on page 18. Again, combining different intervals and connections of fingers. You might have noticed on the last line, going into the 2nd measure, there's a single 3rd finger, and then there's a 6th above it. So what I did was I placed on the 6th, and then I just replayed the 3rd finger. So it's a bit of a connection like that. We're on page 19, the Northern Princess. You'll want to be sure to make your F sharps either with a lever, if you have a lever harp, or with the pedal. On the bottom of page 19, there stands a little man from Hansel and Gretel. You'll notice dynamics and a fermata in this piece. Also, the opening interval of a 4th, it's marked with a 3rd finger. Your teacher might want you to play it with a 2nd finger. I'm going to play it as is written in the book. Thank you for watching. Please consider clicking like and subscribe to see more videos like this.